after a lot of prayer, a lot of thoughts with my family and my friends, I'm here to announce my candidacy to be the next governor of the great state of Florida.
So, Roger, we had Congressman Byron Donalds here on the program yesterday, and he was giving us a real preview of some of the issues that he intends to use in his run in this new primary where he's already received the endorsement of President Trump for the Florida governor's race. But Roger, I'm sure just like any of these other primaries in a red state like this, you're going to have other people get involved. You're going to have other big name candidates who want to get in as well, even in the face potentially of this Trump endorsement. So Roger, if you could handicap for us the gubernatorial race of Florida for 2026.
Sure. First of all, I'm a strong supporter of Byron Donalds. I think he's been a great congressman, a great supporter of the America First agenda. He's a true fighter. As I predicted well over 2 years ago, the governor's wife, Casey Desantis, has announced that she is seriously considering a race. This is really because, first of all, Ron DeSantis is term limited. He can only serve 2 terms, so he'll be out of office at the end of 2026. And yes, he wants to run for president again in 2028, although I don't think he could beat J.D. Vance, or if J.D. Vance chose not to run, I don't think he could beat anyone for that matter. But in this particular case, this is shaping up as a proxy fight. While Governor DeSantis and his wife were on their way to Washington to ask the president to remain neutral in the primary, I can think of no reason, given DeSantis' betrayal of Trump in the presidential campaign, why he would do that. The president actually tweeted a warm endorsement of Byron Donalds. Now, a word of caution, the early polls will show Casey DeSantis far ahead because she has superior name ID, simply based on people's knowledge of her governor, her husband, the governor. By the way, Adam Putnam was far, far ahead of Ron DeSantis until gubernatorial candidate DeSantis was endorsed by Donald Trump. And then he took off like a rocket. So the Trump endorsement, particularly in the Sunshine State, this is the gold standard. And I would imagine before it's over, that Trump will actually stump for Byron Donalds. Even here in the Sunshine State, where Governor DeSantis remains relatively popular, he's not as popular as the president. And frankly, the DeSantis candidacy offended a lot of MAGA voters. The fact that he took a lot of money from neocons and from the establishment. But the cheapest shot here, Jack, was when Byron made it clear he was running for governor and the president endorsed him. Governor DeSantis criticized Byron Donalds for missing votes in Congress when he was out campaigning for President Trump in 2024, which is ironic because Ron DeSantis missed a record number of votes while he himself was running for governor.
And this is really something that I think anyone can say in politics, that, of course, there's always going to be votes on the table. There's always going to be jobs that could be done. Of course, we know exactly where Byron Donalds was. Byron Donalds, by the way, didn't make didn't try to hide where he was. He was in the streets of Philadelphia. He was going up to Detroit. He was working the cities for President Trump throughout 2024. In fact, he made a great showing of it. And a lot of those videos coming from the Philadelphia area myself that really had a fantastic impact in swinging the state for President Trump. He's shown an ability to be able to go into those neighborhoods, to reach out to those types of voters. And of course, this all is presaged. And people forget, by the way, that the first Trump post-rally pizza stop was, in fact, with Byron Donalds and his son. They went for a round of pizzas after his event, and it became a sort of perennial tradition along the Trump campaign thereafter to go out and get food at a local establishment after a rally. But it was actually Byron Donalds in, I want to say, it was either Fort Myers or Sarasota where they did the first one. And so, Roger, this is a case, I think, where you're exactly right that a lot of the moves we're seeing right now are also directly tied to a potential 2028 primary. And I believe Florida Politics had a poll out earlier today that said if it were held today, that in the state of Florida, J.D. Vance would best Governor DeSantis by 14 points in Florida alone. So it really seems to me like a lot of this is a proxy fight, the Tallahassee fight, for the potential 2028 primary, which in many ways has already begun.
Yeah, for people who don't live in Florida, they may not remember the background, but Ron DeSantis was a rather undistinguished three-term congressman. He says, by the way, that Byron Donalds is not qualified to be governor, but Donalds has been in the House the same 3 terms that DeSantis was in the House when he ran for governor. Ron was running at about 8%. Adam Putnam, the favorite, endorsed by every single Republican county chairman, every single Republican state legislator in both the House and the Senate, every member of the congressional delegation who was a Republican, with the exception of Matt Gaetz. He was leading 53-8. Then President Trump, with a simple tweeted endorsement, broke that race open. DeSantis took off like a rocket to win the nomination handily. But then President Trump still had to visit Florida 3 times in the last 2 weeks to literally drag DeSantis over the finish line. So a lot of Trump supporters here in the Sunshine State are asking, where is the loyalty? I mean, Ron DeSantis would be managing a McDonald's today were it not for Donald Trump. And the real question, the reason I think he's talking about running his wife for governor is for the fulcrum of fundraising that would provide, because no one gives to Ron DeSantis because they like him. People give to him because either he was the neocon alternative to Donald Trump or because they have to, taking a huge amount of money from lobbyists and special interests here in Florida.
Well, so Roger, then, if that is the case, then does it seem, or do you see the signs, the tea leaves already for a potential use of Casey DeSantis's candidacy for governor as a potential springboard for Governor DeSantis to then run in the primary for 2028?
Well, I think that is what he's hoping, but they really need it as an ability to raise money. If they're both out of office between 26 and 2028, raising the hundreds of millions of dollars you need for a presidential campaign is almost impossible. Ron DeSantis, between PACs and his campaign, where he had an extraordinary amount of coordination that many experienced operatives think was illegal, he spent $300 million. The current attorney general, who was his chief of staff, who has announced that he's investigating Andrew and Tristan Tate, he was actually making fundraising calls from the executive office of the governor. That's a felony. Also doing fundraisers in the governor's mansion, also quite illegal. So this is really all about money and 2028. Ron also has the alternative of running for the U.S. Senate. He appointed Ashley Moody, the state attorney general, to the vacancy created by the resignation of Marco Rubio. People assume that she's going to run again, but we don't know that. And it's possible that if Ron doesn't think Casey can make it, because up against the Trump juggernaut, I don't think she can, he could run for the Senate as a way to keep his presidential aspirations alive. But, Jack, senators can't raise the kind of money that governors can, or that a governor's wife can if she's governor, which is, I think, the principal reason she's talking about running. What her qualifications to be governor are is a little hard to put your finger on. Yes, she's done great charitable work. We applaud her for that. But prior to that, she was a newscaster. To say that she's less experienced than Byron Donalds, well, that's absurd.